welcome to another episode of That Game Rules. This ain't your dad's podcast, or maybe it is. I'm a dad. I'm your host, Scuba Steve. Thank you for listening. Every week here, we're going to pick a game. We're going to travel back in time, talk about all the movies, shows, toys that surround that game. Then we'll get into the game, go over vitals, box art, characters, levels, check out some comments, reviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff. At the end, we'll give this game some awards, talk about remake versus demake, and determine once and for all if that game rules. Thanks again for listening. Today, we're talking about Mega Man 2. Have any of you ever chewed through an old Nintendo controller to get to the gooey, coppery goodness on the inside? Because I feel like playing this game when I was a kid, I might have done that. And it's a good thing they make those little NES controllers as durable as they were. This isn't you drop a PS5 controller, you might have some issues, but I think those NES controllers can make it through drywall. You chuck one of those things hard enough. Anyway, we're going to waste some time together today. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, the best way to do that currently is thatgamerules@gmail.com. Tell me the games you want to talk about. Let's send me your memories, your favorite games, levels, bosses, cheats, any of the old playground stuff we used to talk about. I'm currently working on a website, but I'm also learning that, self-teaching myself that at the same time I'm trying to teach myself how to podcast. So I have that at thatgamerules.com, and I'm hoping to get that set up so I can get some newsletters out to let you guys know the games that are coming up so that you can then send me all your info on those and get it read on the show. Also currently setting up a free Patreon just as a place to kind of collect everything, and it may be the best place to do things like voting polls, so you guys can tell me the games you want to hear about. I don't have any social media stuff going yet, and it's hard to kind of keep all those together, so I'm going to stick stuff up on Patreon eventually. It'll be patreon.com/thatgamerules. Again, that's all going to be free. This is just a passion project for me, so I appreciate all you guys who are listening. Shout out to a couple listeners right now. We're going to shout out Raichu and Zelda and Wanda, because those are our three cats and are currently the only listeners of this show because I haven't posted any of this out yet. But if you haven't noticed, those are our three cats, and yes, it's Raichu. He was adopted, but he already had that name as a Pokemon. And then, of course, Zelda was my oldest daughter's cat. I suggested that name. She loved it. And Wanda is my wife's cat, and she is Wanda Maximoff, technically. So my wife is a big Scarlet Witch fan out of nowhere. Thank you, WandaVision. So what have I been up to before we get into the game and the time warp? It is currently June 5th. So my Switch 2 is upstairs right now, downloading Mario Kart World, so I will be playing that. I've been playing some Mega Man 2, of course, and other than that, gaming-wise, I'm just busy with a lot of end-of-the-year school stuff with the kids, carnivals and field days and all those kind of things, so they're running me wild. But we're past the intro. We're going to get right into a time warp. I know that my podcast can kind of seem like, did you ever see that episode of South Park, like the Member Berries, where I just kind of rattle off, hey, do you remember that? That was cool. Hey, remember this? That was cool. But my whole life, and I feel like the way I talk a lot of times is almost just based entirely on movie and TV show references and video games, and, that's just part of my personality. But we'll start by getting right into a time warp. We're talking Mega Man 2. We're going to go back to 1988. Let's get this baby going.
Have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh man, that synth just screams 1988, doesn't it? Today's Time Warp is brought to you by Tiger Electronic Handheld Gaming Systems. Listen to me, kids of the 80s, 90s. Do you like Power Rangers? Do you like Mortal Kombat, X-Men, Sonic, Do you like Space Jam? Do you like Lion King, Jurassic Park, Aladdin? Do you like all those things, and would you love them in video game form? Well, get ready to have your parents and grandparents disappoint you on every single birthday and Christmas when they give you one of these Tiger electronic handhelds. The packaging is beautiful on these things. When I'd walk down the aisle at Kmart, and I'd be eyeing these things, even though I knew they were just going to make me angry. But the packaging looks great. They were cheap. I think they were even like $15 back then. So aunts, uncles, grandparents would see these things and they'd pick these things up for you guys. And you're talking static screen. Hold that thing in the sun if you want to see what you're doing. The way those screens worked, they just had pre-placed graphics, and you could only do so much. In Mortal Kombat, I mean, if you hold that thing in the sun, push your thumb down on that screen, and you can see all the little moves that you could do eventually. You could squish it down and see Johnny Cage's 8 leg motions he has. I was trying to think like if there was any of those that really worked for me or any of them that I really liked, but I don't think so. I think we just had those, and it was almost like use your imagination with these things. And on top of that, they took batteries. And why would you want to put batteries in those when I've got my Game Gear eating up 6 batteries every 3 minutes? Or your Game Boy with your 4 batteries. It's almost like let's take a Game Boy and demake it. It's like almost like here's a little Etch-a-Sketch. Just kind of draw what you think you're doing on these games. But anyway, if you don't know what those are, if you're younger, take a look at some of those because they are pretty. And of course, like anything else old people grew up with, there's a huge collector market for those as well. But thank you, fake sponsor, Tiger Electronics. I think they're still out there nowadays, even probably some new games. But let's talk 1988. This game, we'll get into it. But as far as things surrounding Mega Man 2, 1988, we'll talk movies. We've got a lot of classics for me. And, I know as I go through all these years and as we get more episodes in, I'm not just going to rattle off movies. I'll probably pick some to maybe do a small little memory or deep dive on. And heck, eventually I'd love to do maybe like a That Movie Rules kind of episodes for you guys as well, especially the video game movies. But anyway, let's talk some movies that meant a lot to me, even now or then. Beetlejuice, of course, and the kids are huge fans of that now as well. My youngest daughter, with the new show Wednesday on Netflix, she's into that. So as far as just kind of Tim Burton kind of creepiness, and my kids were always kind of raised on that. I didn't hide, movies or shows from them if you're there to supervise or the parental guidance of the parental guidance ratings. But I mean, I'd show my young kids, we were watching stuff like Beetlejuice, or both my daughters loved Coraline growing up. And just kind of these, let your kids kind of see the darkness, let them work through their fears. Don't hide that stuff from them. Die Hard came out, Naked Gun, of course. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I'd love to talk about that movie again someday. And a lot of those movies back then fall along the lines of, at one point they didn't have a PG-13, so you had PG, like straight to R, and a lot of those movies kind of walk that line between enough to keep adults entertained and maybe kids entertained, but it's the kind of things you watch now when you're like catching jokes as an adult. But hey, if you didn't catch them when you were a kid, then that's the point. Back then they had those kind of movies that kids would sit through, but they were made for adults. Whereas nowadays they make movies like, the Pixar, like The Incredibles, or these kind of movies that are made for kids, but have this stuff for adults to be able to sit through. We also had Willow, a classic to me, kind of all those movies like Willow, Labyrinth. What was the other one? Never-Ending Story, those kind of movies. Land Before Time, a big cartoon in my house when I was a kid. And then some of my favorites that more now, I remember watching Child's Play when I was a kid and being terrified, but I love that. And I love kind of Where Chucky's Gone with his ridiculousness. Another show that my youngest daughter watched with my wife, the new Chucky show, which is not for an 11-year-old at all. But like I said, if you're there with your kids experiencing these things together, you can, you work those things out, or you answer questions they may have. And then another classic favorite for me that we've all watched with my kids forever is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And I think there's a new game, if it hasn't come out yet already, for that. But watch that movie with your kids. And it's weird because nowadays my oldest daughter is 20, and she will sit there and she'll get together with my son, 13, my youngest daughter, 11. And between those three, it's like an episode of Mystery Science Theater. They watch these bad horror movies and just rip on them the whole time. And I think it's quite endearing for me. TV shows, 1988-ish. Count Duckula, shout out to you. It's random. Garbage Pail Kids. I think that was a TV show, maybe for a season, but it was based on those cards, and which are terrible. Look up some of those. Another thing there's a huge collector market for, just all the cool stuff. Might have been peak humanity, 80s, 90s, because all this stuff is like worth so much to us. And like anytime I say something based on pricing on collector items or anything, it's the price is based off of what people will pay. There's no value technically in it at all besides what someone is willing to pay for that, based on how much they might want something that they grew up with. Also shout out Wonder Years. When you were a kid and growing up and your parents had control of the TV, very few channels. From then, you just kind of got stuck watching what they were watching. And sometimes it was good. Sometimes it's, boring as a kid, but then you grow up and you find out these shows were pretty great. Wonder Years was one of them. And then huge shout out to Roseanne, which was a show I just grew up with because my mom watched it. But I loved that show. I loved all those shows I grew up with. And I really feel like they molded me as a father, as a husband. The other shows, we had Roseanne, which I love how between Roseanne and Married with Children, they just brought kind of the dirt of families. It wasn't this clean cookie cutter, Leave It to Beaver stuff. Roseanne's house was dirty and they talked and ragged on each other in dirty language, and same with like Married with Children, which I loved. Home Improvement. I loved Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will still watch some of those episodes, and I'll tear up now, like the Home Improvement episode where old JTT, he gets some sort of disease or something. It's one of those like serious episodes, not quite like the old Saved by the Bell episodes where they'd all stand out at like the end on like a drug episode and everyone would like talk to you about how serious that episode was. It wasn't like that, but they were still like these kind of emotional episodes. The one in Fresh Prince is, besides like the final episode where like the set's empty, is the one where Will Smith, like he's talking about his dad or something and how his dad doesn't want him. And that one will like get me every time if I see it. And, I really like Will Smith as an actor, despite, the last couple of years. But did anybody else have like just mom shows or like mom movies that were just on that, like, again, I grew up with a single mom, so there are movies I love that I shouldn't. As a 40-something-year-old man, I love Pretty Woman. I love Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. I love Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Just all these movies that were just kind of on in the background that are just kind of, I'll watch if they're on now. We'll keep moving on to toys. And when I say toys, we're talking 1988. And if you don't think that every kid in 1988, boy anyway, was going for those Ninja Turtle figures, man, we're talking the blimp, we're talking the big sewer set, the little pizza disc chucking van. I had all that stuff. I wish I still did. I know in particular that blimp's worth a lot because it was like a blow up balloon, so you don't see a lot of those in good condition anymore. But I mean, when you're talking 1988, the popular toys at that time were all these 80 toys. G.I. Joe, Star Wars, figures were still big then. Cabbage Patch dolls were huge. And I think Cabbage Patch dolls kind of started the mall madness kind of scenes, the moms punching each other for toys. It was kind of pre-Tickle Me Elmo. The Black Friday type stuff. I think it's the same kind of concept they used in like Jingle All the Way with Turbo Man doll, as far as it's probably more of a reference to Cabbage Patch dolls. Although I like the fact in that movie they always have like the booster dolls available and like nobody wants it, and that's kind of how it was. If you wanted a certain toy, it was gone, but then there was shelves and shelves of these other side characters that nobody wanted to deal with. Video games out when we're talking 1998. This is the Nintendo era. So all those were out. We're talking Mario 2, 3, Blaster Master, Ghouls and Ghosts. Another favorite of mine were like the Dragon Quest games, which we're talking NES RPGs. Excuse me. Like Final Fantasy 1 is like tough to get through. It's just like they didn't know what they were doing. I don't remember much about Final Fantasy, the first one on the NES, the Final Fantasy, besides like I didn't like it. So maybe I'll give that another run through, because that was a long time ago. Also a shout out to the recent, I forget the name of it, and it might be Level Up. It's like a new show with little kind of stories of video games, and they have one of Mega Man. And it's only like 10 minutes long, but it's like, can we just make that a full movie, please? It had very like Astro Boy-esque quality to it, and that's a movie I like. So shout out to that. Go watch that if you haven't. We're going to get into Mega Man 2. And when I started this podcast, I knew I wanted to talk about box art, because that was, like I say a lot, just how all you had to judge a game by. And I knew I couldn't wait to get to Mega Man and Mega Man 2 as far as box art. They might be like the most famously terrible, and I freaking love them for that. So let's get into this box art. So Mega Man 2 is just like Mega Man 1 as far as it's like a guy in a suit, although Mega Man 1 is drawn so terribly. I didn't look up too much of the history on that, but I know that it was like the artist was given, I think on the first one, like 2 hours to like draw up something he had no idea about. But as far as the Mega Man 2 cover, you have human males in these like costumes, and it's like a guy's got a helmet, and for some reason there's no blaster, it's a gun. And I think the artist said that like that's what America, whatever, and then Capcom, Nintendo, whoever it was in America for American audiences said, give that guy a gun. Because in Japan, he's known as Rockman. There's also, for this, they have like titles after their games. I forget which this one was, because it's like Rockman 2 caption fights bad guys or whatever it is, but none of the Mega Man games here ever had those. And I do like Mega Man better. I think it just kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit more with the double M's there. So again, the box art, I mean, I like kind of the platform, I like the background of it, besides you take the kind of guys out of it. And it's like, it's cool how they took, the 2D NES level. It kind of looks like maybe Flame Man's level, or Heat Man, sorry. I'm not sure, but North American box art guy was Mark Erickson. So sorry, guy, but I love it. And as far as the back of it, nothing too crazy there. It's got some good screenshots. It has the shot of your 8 Robot Masters and a quick description. It doesn't have, I like to, if I can, kind of go over the back of the box description. If there's anything fun or anything translated bad, I like to go over that, but it's pretty cut and paste. Another shout out to a lot of these, like I think they were third party, but as far as like Capcom, like I just remember those games, it's kind of got this bluish purple border around it. So, I mean, they had like Chip and Dale. They had, I think, a lot of the Disney stuff was Capcom. Tailspin, maybe DuckTales. But I just know Capcom was banging back then. And I can see the logo. A lot of those games or a lot of those old like logos, when they pop up, can hit some nostalgia. Almost like the same when you watch an old movie and you see like a New Line Cinema or these old kind of production studio logos that aren't around anymore. Like Capcom or some of the other ones, like you'd have the EA Sports, or not that Sega was like a third party thing, but it'd pop up with the Sega, so I like all the I have just distinct memories of those. And Mega Man 2, you were, I picked this game out of all the Mega Mans. It's not my favorite Mega Man, and that could almost change by the day. The one it's my specific memory of this is playing it over at my great aunt's house. I had to stay there, I think me and my sister, 2 weeks in the summer while my mom was in Germany. And this lady was old. I love her, rest in peace, Aunt Lois. But she never had kids, so she didn't even have a TV in the house. And on top of that, her hobby was like making dolls. So her living room was just filled with these like dolls. So I had a little TV I managed to pack up. I think I had Mega Man 2 and I had Yoshi, that NES game. I think it was like a puzzle game. It might have been Yoshi's Cookie, maybe, but it was like a puzzle type game. And I mean, that's all I had for 2 weeks. And when you have 2 weeks to kill, a Mega Man game that you've never played is a great thing to have. Well, let's just kind of go over some quick little notes here on the game before we get right into gameplay and I get to play some more of that sweet, sweet music. So 1988, Capcom, and it's your basic story, your hero, Mega Man, and his was built by Dr. Light as a way to fight Dr. Wily and his bad, evil robot masters. As far as Mega Man 2, so Mega Man 1 was tough. It wasn't received very well. And I think the studio didn't justify any sequels. They were ready to kill it off. And the development team itself worked on their own time. They were approved by some sort of management or something, using their own time, essentially using a lot of their own time. But they were also allowed to work on Mega Man 2 as long as they were working on these other games, whatever their bosses told them to. And so you can tell, it's like Mega Man 2 is like a passion project. And it shows, and I'm glad they did it because like every game that's come after that just keeps building on to the Mega Man legacy. You've got your 6 NES games, you've got 5 Game Boy games, they're on Game Gear, they're on Sega, they're on, and that doesn't even start getting into like Mega Man X, that are some of the best games on the Super Nintendo. So, I mean, Mega Man 2 was the best-selling Mega Man game for a long time and is now only the second best, and that's behind Mega Man 11. So that just goes to show you, the love for these games, or the fact how great Mega Man 2 is, that it stayed on the top. Number 1, awesome. Number 2, that it got that number 11, way down the road, that was fairly recently, is good enough to take the top spot for Mega Man 2. And that's when they stick with the same kind of sprites, the same kind of graphics. And I think 9, 10, 11, they were all good. 7, I know 7's kind of the weird one. And I know there's a lot of Battle Network stuff type 2. But Mega Man 2, of course, a lot of people will say it's the best soundtrack of all the Mega Mans. And a lot of people argue it's the best soundtrack of all time on the NES. And I'll let you be the judge of that. It seems like every Mega Man track in every game is like, it's just amazing what they could do with the limited technology they had back then. And it's like the only music since then, because I don't play a lot of modern games, but I love like Sea of Stars, as far as, I'll probably mention that game a lot as far as how I like my new modern RPGs in the, still this kind of 2D kind of overlap, but the backgrounds look great, but just the music in Sea of Stars is insanely good. And it's just kind of using the same sound bites from all these old systems. Mega Man 2, because Mega Man 1 was so hard, they introduced some new stuff in Mega Man 2. You got E-tanks. You have like your floating platform weapon, like they're called Item 2, Item 3, Item 1. But one of them's like a floating platform. One of them's like a shooting platform. That one will go to the right and one will go up as far as your platforms. And those can be, having those can be helpful. They can cheat through a lot of the levels, and it's like if you've never played a Mega Man game, you can go online and be like, oh, what order do I do the Robot Masters? And you could go and run through a Mega Man game in 45 minutes or less. But when you were back then and you had none of that knowledge, like that was like the fun of it. It was finding the order of the masters, what weapon does what to who, and those were the things that gave you like a sense of accomplishment. So it's like if you want to run through the game, go ahead and look up that kind of stuff. Not everybody has the time like we do when we were kids, when you had just a full weekend to lose on a game. We don't have that time. So, I mean, walkthroughs are fine just to see these games. But if you really want to experience it, you just go in with nothing and you have to trial and error your way through it. And like I said, you'll be throwing your controller the whole time, but there's something about it because at the end, there's just a sense of accomplishment that you don't get with a lot of games nowadays. They just try to make it quick and big, bright graphics like a casino to give you that dopamine fix. But when you really work for it, obviously it sticks with you over 30 some years or whatever. I'm here and I want to talk about Mega Man 2 still. So it also introduced the password system. So Mega Man 1 didn't have that. So that was a good thing to add to a game that they determined was too difficult, so that you could, after each boss, depending on whatever your order is, you can pick back up right where you were anyway. And I mean, that was added again because of consumer complaints of the game being too difficult. And then just again, a shout out to Capcom for putting these games out, and just like the progression of these systems. When you talk like NES to SNES, look at Mega Man versus Mega Man X. And like that's what I love about the Super Nintendo, is it's so just shiny new. When they released all these games like Super Castlevania, Super Mario World, you had your Mega Mans, you just had all these games that just looked like, it had all the bones of those NES games, and they just beefed them up. And it's so different. From there, you go SNES to the 64, and it's almost like back to square one. Now that we're in 3D, they had to go back to these polygon type shapes. And of course, I love the 64. But the weird thing is now it's like young kids now see these 64 games, it's just ugly and terrible. But you throw a couple like Super Nintendo games at them, they wouldn't be able to tell that they weren't just modern games that you have to play with a controller versus on your phone or whatever. So again, shout out to Capcom for keeping it going, making these games happen. I am going to play some of that amazing music, and we're going to get into some straight game chat, some comments and reviews, and enjoy. Let it keep playing. Hold on. Don't sue me, Nintendo. All right. So for some comments and reviews, my cats didn't have anything to say, so I had to look at the internet. And it's weird. I found some angry people on Reddit, which is really weird because Reddit's usually such like a cheery place to look for gaming reviews and stuff. But again, because everybody loves Mega Man 2 and gushes on it, I try to find just some critiques so that we can kind of break it down a little bit. So on Reddit, we've got a guy, and he's got what he says is an unpopular opinion, and that Mega Man 2 is not that great. He says, my big problem is the weapons. They're cool in theory, but so many enemies just don't take damage from anything but the default buster and one or two special weapons. And I'll give him, I'll agree with that. But that's assuming you know what weapons you have and who you're using them on. And, there isn't a set path for the Robot Masters. You can do it in a few different ways. A lot of people will start with, getting that OP metal saw blade, taking out Metal Man. There's a reason that weapon's in Smash Brothers for Mega Man. And yeah, it's true. You can like I said, you can run through this game in 40 minutes, 50 minutes if you know exactly what you're doing and what weapons do what. But, as far as a critique, I'll take that. He says, in Mega Man 2, it seems like all the weapons do a minuscule amount of damage except for one, which kills the boss in like 3 hits. And that's true as well, but it was also, when you put in the work, when you were 8 years old or something playing this game, going through all these, robot masters, you pick one first, you make it all, the thing is you make it all the way through this tough stage. As you're going through the stage, you can see platforms, E-tanks, free life guys that you can't reach now. So you're like, well, if I had a certain power up, I could get those. So you start to question if this is the level you should be in or not. And but you make it through, you make it to that boss, and all you have is your buster, your little, pea shooter, and you're getting nothing on this boss. So you work through that whole level, you made it to the boss, and and you can't beat him. So it's like you write that down, and then you move on to the next one. And it's like as soon as you have like a new Mega Man game, and as soon as you get that first boss down, it's like that's the dopamine fix. That's the good feeling right there. But it is true that there are like, you have the right weapon, and you're like tap, 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 and that boss explodes. But still satisfying. He also says, everyone complains about this, but it has to be mentioned. The Wily Stage 4 boss, the little semicircles on the wall that you can only kill with crash bombs, is such a stupid design decision. That is a tough one. If you're not in there with enough, energy filled up with your crash bomb power on that boss in that stage, it can be annoying. He adds that, the whole second half of this game is more obnoxious than it is fun. And I guess that depends on if you find obnoxious and hard things fun or not. In my case, like I said, I would get angry. I'd throw the controller. I'd bite the cord. I'd say, I'm never playing this again, and go run off to play with, Ninja Turtles. But it's like an hour later, I'm like, oh, click, blowing the cartridge, throw that thing in there, and you go again. And you're like, if it's frustrating you, take a break, just like anything else in life. But all these Mega Man games, there's a reason they're worth so much out there. I want to give a shout out as far as gameplay on the Mega Man collections out there. And I don't know if they have it in the Mega Man collection. I know they do in like the Cowabunga collection for Ninja Turtles. Like on the NES, you can turn off slowdown. And I would not recommend that. Like on these older NES games, when they got all those sprites on the screen and that thing's chugging, and suddenly Mega Man's moving like Neo from the Matrix. Like that is, like I love that when there's so much on that it actually slows down. I like that. It feels like a bullet time type of situation. What we talked about the characters, there's not many. The story on an old NES game is bad doctor guy, you're a good robot guy, go fight bad robots. And that's all you needed back then. There's only so many like twists in gaming. So it's not like I would say like, oh, warning, there's spoilers in this podcast. I guess if I ever do some more modern stuff, I'd let you know. But on these old games, there's nothing worth spoiling unless like it's kind of like the biggest like twist surprise, I guess, on an NES game with me. And if you haven't played Metroid, go ahead and skip to 15 seconds. But when Samus turns out to be a girl at the end, I feel like that was my first video game like twist up until a certain like Final Fantasy VII situation that happened in that game. That seems to be like I feel like when I played that game is when I was like, oh, these games can be not what you expect sometimes. So I won't spoil that one. Go play Final Fantasy VII. So we'll get into the robots. I don't know if I want to give you guys any sort of, or I'll give you guys my order at some point, but I'm just going to go down the bosses kind of as they appear. So you got Woodman. And first of all, I just love just the concept of these robot masters having just a name, having man or whatever, and just having like stages themed around that. But just like the sprites they made of these guys, how they're just kind of like bigger than Mega Man. They're kind of intimidating. It's like I used to like draw these guys or make up these things like in my spare time. One of them mainly I think is there like a scorpion or like a reptile one. It might have been on a Game Boy Mega Man that specifically I had. I would draw him a lot. It's hard to, I'm not, it's weird that my memory I'll have things in my brain that I'll never forget about certain things, and then other things I can't. Like I don't know every Mega Man Robot Master off the top of my head. But anyway, so Woodman, I liked him. He's just a big log looking guy. And I like his level because I like levels. I like something about robots and plants, and when they combined it, you're just in these level with these like big robot trees and like sharp metal leaves, I'm assuming. So Woodman, he's not too difficult, and his power. And the other great thing about the Mega Man game is just all these power-ups you get. And that was like, that was just the fun of it, to then have this power up, and now you got 7 more bosses to go try out and see who's weak. And some of it you might want to have it make sense, like, oh, I've got this big metal saw blade. I bet this would chop up Woodman pretty good. Spoiler alert, you're right. But then it's like other games, it might be like if you took, in this one, if you had like Heat Man's weapon, you might think that it might be good on Bubble Man because he's kind of like a water type thing. And again, I don't know off the top of my head specifically which does what to what boss. I mean, I can tell you're in pretty good shape if you start with Metal Man and get the Metal Blade. That's very OP. But back to Woodman. Woodman, you get the Leaf Shield, so it's not a direct weapon. It surrounds you in little leaves that you can throw as a weapon. But I find it most handy to just have a shield, usually for like those, either like the little froggy things in Bubble Man's level, or those birds that drop the eggs and then a bunch of little birds come out, especially if you're on like a ladder and you don't want to fall down. I use Leaf Shield on that. I'll just kind of poke around at these. I'll mention every single Robot Master and their weapon, but other than that, I'll just try to peek at their levels a little bit. It's this being an audio medium, I can't tell you how nice some of these levels look without you seeing them, but for the NES, and especially for Mega Man 2, compared to even like End of the Life, like Mega Man 5 and 6, the levels just look so great. There's like shine to them, there's like shadows, there's things going on in the background, and then again, it's the designs of the bosses and the sprites and the enemies themselves. And like I said, specifically, you can tell that this was just like I said before, a passion project. All right, so we got Woodman. I like his little metal forest. We've got Airman, and Airman gives you the air shooter. Nothing huge about Airman and his level. Some of these are pretty short in Mega Man 2 as far as the levels, but one of them they can just have one spot. They can just get you for like a day if you can't make it through some of these, or if you don't have the special items. But special items aside, Airman's got some disappearing platforms and stuff. And just Airman itself, you can assume you're going to be like in the sky, and that can be tough on Mega Man games. He moves really good. Like he doesn't slide around he doesn't fall like a brick like in Castlevania, or slide around sometimes like Mario can do. Mega Man kind of goes where you want him. The issue is you're on a tiny little block and you've got 6 things coming at you from 6 different directions, just kind of floating across the screen to you. And if you don't shoot them or jump in the right spot, then Mega Man will hit him and he will fall like a brick. Airman gives you the air shooter. Another next boss, we'll say Heat Man. And I like that level too. I like fire-themed levels. Looks like you get atomic fire from Heat Man. He's got a very, very tough level if you don't have these special items, the like rocket that shoots you across. It's these disappearing blocks. They form and then they disappear. And just like any NES game, even the sprites and everything, it's like when I tell my kids when they're getting frustrated playing old games, I'm like, they're going to be in the same spot. I mean, in Mega Man's case, you can tap backwards for like 3 seconds and they'll all reappear, which can be frustrating from behind and all that stuff. But, with these blocks, these vanishing blocks, you got to just kind of sit there and see the pattern. And it can be hard because there's so much progression. You're moving to the right so much that you can't just sit there and study the pattern. You've got to make it across 6 blocks and see where 7, 8, 9 are going to go as you die, and now know where those are for the next time. But again, if you have the special item, you can hop on a rocket and you can shoot across the lava like it's nothing. I don't think I ever had that. I feel like that was one of my tough levels. And we'll get into that when we talk about awards. Flashman, he's all right. He gives you Time Stopper, and that's kind of unique. You know, a lot of these weapons are just like going to maybe shoot something kind of themed to the boss, but then some of them just kind of do different things, like Leaf Shield. And Time Stopper is cool. It just like stops time, essentially. Like all the sprites freeze, and whatever the boss, I know whoever the boss is that's weak to that, use Time Stop, and I think it just takes 80% of their life out, and then you just pop them again a few times with your buster. Quick Man, that was another tough level. Quick Man gives you the quick boomerang, and it's fun when because you always just have that, the regular blaster that just kind of shoots your little pellets. So when you get something like a boomerang that kind of does like an arc and kind of gives you more of a hit range, obviously the same with Metal Blade we'll get to. But you get the quick boomerang, and the hard thing about Quick Man, and there's no item, none of the items will help you through this, is those laser floors. And those didn't end in Mega Man. They kept coming, and they became easier to me, I think at least, when you had Slide, which you don't have in Mega Man 2. So Quick Man, that was another one. You got to just get to the bottom. You got to keep jumping down past these beams that shoot across the screen and then fill up. So that is considered a tough level for me as well. Crash Man, he gives you the Crash Bomber, and those are kind of like sticky bombs. So it's cool. It's another kind of thing. You can like shoot it and it sticks, and then it blows up. Another tough level for me. It has those like ladder. There's a lot of ladders, and then it has kind of these like platforms. You start in the bottom right, and you got to zigzag, jump on a platform, zigzag your way through the air while these things are coming, spawning left and right. And then you got to get up to the top left ladder. There's a couple of screens of ladders, and if you know Mega Man ladders, as soon as you hit something, you blink, 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 and fall you go. So Leaf Shield's good on that stage if you have it. And like I said, yep, Crash Bomb there. Next we got Bubble Man. He gives you, I guess, Bubble Lead. I guess it would be Bubble Lead. I like that stage as well, like a water theme stage. I know I like the waterfall parts. It's like almost too much kind of flashing, because they put all the detail into the water. He's got little like robot frogs too. And that's where like it's an underwater at some point you're underwater, and thank the maker you're not doing any sort of weird swimming. If anything, you can jump higher underwater, but it plays just like regular Mega Man. But then they're like, oh, you think you can jump higher, until we put a bunch of spikes all over the ceiling. So that's a harder part of that level. But I really like Bubble Man's design. He's just I like all the frog-looking robots in that level. I like Airman's design. I think he's got the big fan in the middle of him. So again, I just love these robot designs. I would draw and make up my own. It's sweet to just kind of pick a theme and kind of make a simple kind of robot around it. And last but not least, we're talking Metal Man and his Metal Blade, and the fact you can throw that thing up, down, left, right, and diagonal, and the fact that it hurts, I swear, at least half the bosses, and it's definitely OP. So there, and then you get, along the way, you get items, item 1, item 2, item 3, and those are your kind of fancy helper items, and those predate where Mega Man's going to go in Mega Man 3 when you get your Good Boy Rush. And what makes a game better? Just last week we were talking about A Boy and His Dog with Secret of Evermore, and here we are again. I mean, not in this game, but a couple of things. Mega Man 1 and 2 almost kind of stand on their own, because I feel like when they added more things in 3 and beyond, it did kind of change it from what it ever would be again. And mainly like your charge up blaster. Because I feel like once they brought the charge out blaster out, you were playing the entire game blinking, charged up, like ready to let your big gun out you came across an enemy. And then, I mean, they added things like slide and they added rush, but they also added good gaming and story development type things too, with like Proto Man, and they start to get into more stories as far as Mega Man and family and Dr. Light and what else other robots he made and things like that. And so shout out again to Rush, my good boy. And it may be a reason why this game isn't my favorite. Maybe it's one of the other ones. Maybe because Rush is in it. Maybe it's the one I played more. Maybe Top Man's my favorite robot master, and I'll take it to the grave just because he was the one I could beat when I was like 6 or whatever. So anyway, you beat all your robot masters just like any Mega Man game, and you're going to head to Wily's castle. And just like any Mega Man game, eventually you're going to fight all those robot masters again. So keep track of what you did on what and what you used on who. But Wily's castle itself has a couple of like mini bosses, and there are tough spots in that castle as well. A lot more of the moving in the air on a platform with sprites coming at you. I feel like that is always kind of the toughest to me because it's a matter of shooting, jumping, and landing back on the platform and what your strategy is for that. And it's like you think you could just kill them all, but it's like they spawn just as quick as you kill them. So it's like, do you want to just try and avoid them so that more don't spawn on the left side of the screen? Try to keep them on the right? So there's a lot of that strategy too. But Wily's stage itself has like a dragon mini boss, and these are like huge. They're not just your little kind of robot masters. So you're jumping along these platforms brick at a time, and this dragon comes chasing you from behind. I just remember that the first time I played that, it was just like, I think I just dropped and died because I just got suddenly scared so quick of this big dragon chasing me. And all the side note on all those parts of games where something's on the left, like chasing you towards the right. I don't know why they just give me crazy anxiety, but I like them. And another, mini boss, you've got like a room that kind of throws bricks at you. It's almost like the tiles in Link to the Past when you're on the floor and it's like throwing tiles at you. So it kind of reminds me of that. So you avoid like a room that's throwing itself at you, I guess, and that's a boss. And then the other one is like a big giant like robot tank guy. Again, just drawn really well, bright, colorful. Like they have thick black lines around things that will give it the illusion of like a cartoon. I like that in games. I just like the style of it. It's almost like I really love the style of Yoshi's Island and how that looks like a cartoon with like big brushstrokes and big thick borders on things. And it almost kind of went with things like Mega Man comics and Mega Man cartoons. I talked about how much I like the slowdown. We talked about the slide, the feature games. You had 6 on the NES, and the difference between that going into Mega Man X, which I'd love to talk about someday as well. And then like the other things, like I like Mega Man X, how you start to build up your armor visually, like on the screen you start to get whatever shoulder pads and helmets and things like that. Whereas in these games it's still cool because you change color, and that was another like fun part. It's like every time you kill a boss, like what color is Mega Man going to turn? And sometimes I would play the game with my favorite color. It didn't matter what the weapon was, the things you do when you're younger. But I think we're going to wrap it up as far as gameplay. We're going to talk about some awards. We're going to gush more on some levels. I don't have any real cheats. Mega Man's like another big speed running game. And it's weird how many rules people will have as far as when they're speed running. I used to play this game. I think I had one of those controllers. It was like you could flip a little switch to do like an auto fire, like a rapid fire. You'd flip a little switch, and then all you had to do was hold down fire, and it would just rapid fire. But it's more fun to just tap, 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 tap. With the controls on this game being so simple, you're moving and you jump and shoot. And it's like, sometimes I do these like booths because I do like some 3D printing and stuff. So these like fairs where me and the kids will sell some stuff. And I'll have a Nintendo, a little mini set up there with a TV and just for kids to come over and play. And they always pick it up with the cord on the bottom. So they're holding it upside down. And I'm just like, because I'm like, the lack of joysticks, maybe they don't know what to do, but I'm just like, man, you go back to that simple, and like, it wasn't rounded, it was like square, solid square controller. Anyway, we're going to talk about some awards. Let's get into it.
Aren't you a little old for video games?
That man is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
Let's do all the things that you want to do.
Throw me a frickin' bone here. I'm the boss. Need the info.
I've lived in mortal terror that this would happen.
Get on with the ceremony.
All right, someday I will get some comments and awards from you guys or my cats. But in the meantime, let's do award number 1. I got 3 awards. Sometimes it'll be hardest level, sometimes it'll be favorite level, sometimes maybe prettiest level. Right now, I'm going to talk about my personal favorite track from this game. I wish I could just play all of them back to back for you guys, but I don't think I'm legally allowed to do any of that. It's kind of, my favorite, I think, is also the internet's favorite, and it's Wily Stage 1. That's when you first go into Wily's Castle. I also really like, is it Woodman? Yeah, it's Woodman Stage. I don't know why, and I forget that jingle now, but I just remember I really like that one. But Wily Stage 1 is like the stuff you can work out to. You heard it once already, and I'm going to play it some more. Oh yeah, you're running on the treadmill. How can you not just tap your foot? All right. I'll just play it again. All right, let's just keep going. No, okay. So that's my favorite track, and there's a huge community of like Mega Man music remixers, like techno DJs and stuff, and it's like, it's insane, some of that stuff. It's like you were doing that with a 16-bit Nintendo. How many tones did you have? I don't even know, like 6? And it's like, no one's giving these guys like props, and I'm not either because I didn't look up the names, but I'm sure like people know these guys. But it's like, man, these guys sitting back then in headphones on and just composing these kind of things, like, just thank you, all you guys, and keep that music going, and go listen to that Sea of Stars song too, the boss fight in Sea of Stars. I'll play that someday. Next award, I'm going to do hardest level for me. And I've got 2 of them here, and I mentioned it. And it's going to be between Heatman and Quickman. And by the way, I'm so bad at this. I just have like papers everywhere. Are you supposed to podcast like with things on the screen? Because I have like papers, and I've got like a quill over here. I'll get the hang of this eventually. So hardest level is, so we'll say personal. It's going to be between Quickman and its laser floors. And it's going to be between Heatman and its vanishing blocks. And it's like, it would be Heatman 1,000% if you didn't have your rocket slide, a special item. So it's like, I could say it could be Quickman because there is no special item to get you by those floor lasers any faster. But just based on the amount of skill it takes to do the Heatman section of the vanishing blocks without item 1 or whatever item number is, I think it might be 2 that slides you across. I'm going to give that one to Heatman. There's other levels with vanishing blocks in other Mega Man games too. And like I was saying, the tough part is you can't just be like, okay, there's 1, 2, 3. And it has this, I can hear the sound in my head. Sometimes I think I wake up at night, I shoot up out of bed and I sit up with that like vanishing block noise. So I'm going to give it to Heatman. You're going to get a little pecking. You're all right. You're a cool boss too. He was like kind of built big, like kind of looks, I like how small Mega Man can look next to some of the bosses, and they only get better down the road as far as the creativity. There's just no end to Robot Masters. Some worse than others, but so again, hardest level, Heat Man. Try that without your secret little American cheats they gave us because we're not good at video games. And we'll move on to the third award is kind of a giveaway. Maybe we could do something else, but I did the most OP weapon, and man, is it that metal blade. I wonder if they could go back, if this was a modern game, like a modern indie game, if they would go back and nerf the metal blade at all. Because I think it's like they threw it, he's got it in Smash, and it's like because they knew how popular it was. And that was the thing about these games too, is you release these games, you put them in a cart and you send them out in the world, and that was it. Game breaking things, good or bad, they were just part of it, and they've just continued to just kind of be part of the like the community around old games, between things like they can't change. I like a lot of the bad translations that they had on like the NES games, Ghostbusters, especially Conflagrations or something. But that's kind of what made these things like real art. It's like you make art, you put it out there, and you can't take it all back. George Lucas, you can't take all these Star Wars out of people's homes and only give them your special editions. He can do that. They couldn't do that with video games. So it's like you got these games and they were yours for better or worse. So 3 awards down. If we want to talk remake/demake, we're talking an NES game, but when we talk future games, I like to think of them because demakes are kind of cool and popular, and I like them. But as far as like a remake, there's no reason for a remake, because after Mega Man 1 through 6, we're going to go right into Mega Man X, which is top tier when it comes to NES to SNES on these video games. Like I said, right along with Castlevania, Metroid, I'm trying to think of like all their IP. There was just like 8-bit here and now 16-bit here, and gorgeous. So again, Super Nintendo, like I said, you give that to a little kid and they won't just say, ooh, look at this old game. They might just say, neat, it's Mario, let me try playing it. So no remake needed, no demake needed. And when it comes to Mega Man 2, of course, that game rules for sure. Sorry, with all the ums and uhs, I'm trying to keep the podcast clean. So I think you should be able to listen to it. Or I appreciate a podcast I can at least just have on around the house that isn't full-on cussing or like true crime murder and all that kind of stuff. So all my pauses or all my uhs are probably replacing what would be like a cuss word, but we'll keep it clean, let it play around your kids, and let them hear how good these games are. With that said, we'll get out of it. We'll be done. We'll move on. What do you guys want to talk about next week? I was thinking of doing a Sega game. I'm just trying to get some like intro episodes out, but I'm also trying to, number one, talk about games I can just talk about for sure. When it comes to, I do some sort of research, but I don't write a lot out. I have like notes, and then I pick it, and then I just kind of ramble about it, and maybe someone likes it out there. But, I like natural sounding podcasts when it comes to, when I started looking into this or just kind of doing it as a hobby, it's because I wanted to do it. I wanted to learn it. I wanted to learn audio editing, video editing, website making, and all the stuff I don't do in life. I'm a machinist by trade, so I just do whatever manly metal type work that I hate. But it's like, so all this tech stuff I'm trying to learn, and all they want to do when it comes to making anything nowadays is just have AI do it for you. And I hate that. So I'm trying to learn all this on my own. But so I could just have AI take all my uhs and ums out and take all my spaces out, but I don't like it. Maybe if I get some complaints, I can go in there and do it all myself as well. But some of the podcasts I listened to, I liked when they were like at the beginning, they were just sounded like natural and like you were just talking to a guy hanging out or a girl or just kind of people, talking. And then as some podcasts progress, they just get almost like too professional, and then it just sounds like you're listening to a newscaster or something. So forgive my rambling. Let's wrap up this show here. I'll talk about a few more house cleaning things at the end, but I'll try to save all that crap. So if you guys are good, if you like some of that game chat or some of that nostalgia chat, you can click off now. But let's just go over some outro stuff. I just want to thank you guys again, you 3 cats sitting on the floor over there. You guys made it through another episode. If you are listening to this and you like it or you don't like it, send me messages, thatgamerules@gmail.com. Again, that'll be my best bet right now. Try shooting over to patreon.com/thatgamerules. And again, if I have any of this stuff set up, say, hey, good job in your head to me. So I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like too, I like the podcast when you listen to them at the beginning and they're like, we have no ads. We are completely ad free. And then 30 seconds later is like a cut in ad because they're like popular now and making money and stuff. I mean, good for them. And like good for me if you ever hear like ads on this, I guess. But again, not that I'm rich by any means. But it's like, this was just kind of for fun, but I like to keep it going. I mean, I bought the cheapest mic. I'm YouTubing things. I have used equipment. I don't have like even this mic here on my desk. It's like when you're looking at podcast mics, I got a cheap one based on like reviews and looking up what a good cheap podcast mic is. But it's like you see all the fancy ones on like the big swinging arm things that people have in like podcasts. And I was like, no, you don't get that yet. You're not just going to buy yourself into like cool, besides they're like $200+ or something. I'm not the type of guy to just be like, I'm not going to pay to win. I'm going to earn my keep in this podcast world. Again, send in your stuff. Again, I have no experience. I am hoping to get better and, I can change the format around. I'll try to dial in my thoughts a bit more. I'm excited for any sort of comments and reviews. I don't know where, and I just mean like you guys talking to me. I don't know if you guys rate my podcast anywhere or any of that like stuff or subscribing or all these things that people are asking for. I don't know about any of that. You probably need that kind of stuff to be a successful podcast, but I'm just trying to put a piece of myself out there and, like I may have said before, just kind of maybe give my kids something to listen to when I'm gone someday. But again, I'm bad at editing. I'm figuring it out. I don't like re-listen to this podcast. I do like a quick edit and I send it into the ether. And that's just kind of how I like it. I feel like if you micromanage that kind of stuff too much, then you could just be at it for days. So again, I want it to be natural. And kind of my goal, I guess, would be to get to 100 episodes. I know that's 2+ years, and it's quite tough because my schedule is super full with kids and work. But I also read some sort of statistic that said like 94% of podcasts don't last to 100 episodes. And that makes sense if you've ever listened to a podcast and it had like 12 episodes and then it was gone. But again, if this is just a hobby, I'm going to keep putting them out there. If you keep liking it, I teased what I want to do next week. It may be a Sega game, but we'll see. Because I do want to do like a World of Warcraft episode, specifically 2006 to 2010 when I played it. And it's hard to say like talk about retro games when this game is still around. It's definitely not the game it was now when I played it. But we'll see. It's going to be Sega something, or it's going to be a Warcraft next week. But either way, I'm looking forward to it. And we'll wrap it up. We'll get out of here. Again, thanks for listening, cats. Thanks for listening, humans. And we'll see you on the next one. Get out of here, cats.